Thanks, Vlad. Appreciate it. So yeah, I mean, I've come a long journey. Started as a developer, a couple of roles in software engineering, frameworks, used a couple of them, including Chaos and Cowboy. But I have learned that really, besides the framework, framework is a framework, but it's important for us to use our brains and our intelligence to solve our problems. There's no silver bullet. So some folks might go, Agile doesn't work. We have to make it work and do the hard work ourselves. But the frameworks help us to do that, which is good. But there's a little bit more to it than just, let's do Scrum. Everything's going to work, copy paste, zombie Scrum, just do what the book says, and everything is just lottie-dottie. It's a complex domain. So my passion is to be creative, to work with people, to get input, to empower people who already have the answers to just surface those answers. And I've always taken a coaching stance with the development teams I work on, rather than just beating the framework or preaching the framework. I think that's what inspired the talk a little bit as well. So some of you might be wondering, how the heck did I draw a link between the two, chess and Agile? Well, or maybe not. If you can draw a link between baking a bread and Agile, that's maybe not so strange to use chess. But a while ago, I was brushing up on my chess skills, which I've had a bit more time for in the lockdown, mostly online. And yeah, I could see, I was reading a book, and quite far into the book, I got to the spot that said, this general principles exist for guidance, should not be slavishly adhered to. And much of the beauty of chess actually comes in when the principles are turned on its head, like when a pawn becomes more valuable than a queen. So that reminded me a little bit of my Agile journey over the past several years. In the beginning, I learned the principles and practices. I followed the rules by the book. Actually, I was afraid to break some rules because I'm not Agile. I'm not doing Scrum right. Oh gosh, and I don't know enough. A bit of an imposter syndrome. And I learned from experience. Created my own approaches later on and adapted the learnings to my own context. So we should have principles. Principles are really important. They are the basis of what we build on. They're there to guide us and not tell us what to do. Common sense and reasoning for ourselves is also, however, very important. So let's look at the meaning of principle a little bit according to Oxford Dictionary. It's fundamental truth with the onus on basis of reasoning, and then a general law as a guide to action. So I've prepared a couple of patterns that I saw are similar in chess and Agile, and a couple of key lessons that we can learn from chess grandmasters. But before we get into that, let's just take a bit of a step back and see Agile and chess is similar because they're both simple in theory, but they're difficult to master in practice. So chess is a simple game. You've got 6 different pieces, each with a set way of moving across a board with 64 black and white squares. But things get very complex. After 3 moves into a game, there's more than 9 million positions. It's quite mind-blowing. With Agile, it's the same. You go for the training and you learn. It's simple. Actually, it looked fantastic to me when I read the Scrum guide, and it was like, this is it. This is the answer, like to all the problems I'm having. And then you get into the real world, and things get quite complex. There's people, dynamics, business asks, like, when is that going to be done? Things like that, and it's difficult in practice. So if I can just do a check, how many of you have gone to Agile theories, learned from other people, maybe reading a book, and tried that in practice, and it just didn't work for you? If you can just do, I don't know what you get on Zoom, emoticon, thumbs up, whatever, just quite interested to, curious. Okay, so a couple of us. So when you get it into the real world, you bit like a, what do I say, deer in headlights, and you go like, what now? So to tackle this complexity, grandmasters study. They study games, books, opening strategies. After they've played games, they analyze the games, see how they could have improved. And knowing is really good, but we shouldn't stop there. Blindly applying theory can cost you the game, but learning what works in practice and then trying different tools, that will get you the results to win. And this quote speaks about it. In theory, there is no difference between theory and practice, while in practice there is. So let's get into the lessons. The first one is context is king. There's many resources for Agile and Chess. They're very useful. They're not too difficult to understand, but really hard to apply effectively. So like the Scrum guide says, Scrum is lightweight, simple to understand, yet difficult to master. To apply the Agile principles, or any principle effectively, real world circumstances needs to be taken to consideration, and then a strategic approach needs to be taken instead of just applying them blindly. So we first have to look at the context and then decide on an approach and then try it. And then also think, can this approach be adapted and not just do a copy and paste? So this is an example of where a chess player, I'll try and put on the, can you guys see my mouse here?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this is an example where a chess player looked at the context, and per principle, if you can see on the right, there's different points that each chess piece is weighted at. So queen is 9 points, rook is 5 points, etc., etc. So in this move over here, the queen was standing in this block over here, the green block, and the white player was next to move, so he put the king in check, and he sacrificed his queen. Why did he do that? Because there's a rook here. The rook just took the queen again, but on the next move, it was checkmate because the white rook over here took the black rook, and because the knight is standing here, there was no way to move to, and it was checkmate. So this is an example of how you can look at your context and use the principle as a guideline, but also adapt to your context and make it work for you. We need to think. So thinking differently will lead us to different new approaches. There's no right or wrong. It's not fixed. Some things work better than other things. Some approaches are better than other. For example, if we look at refinement, so typical refinement could be, we had it that the product owner gets the requirements from the stakeholders. We have an hour a week. The product owner explains the requirements to the development team. Are there any questions? Silence. Do they understand? Is a silence a no or a yes? Do they understand? And people didn't like it. They dragged their feet to it. So we tried a bit of a different approach where we made it parts of the development team own certain pieces of requirements, and they would go and think it through. They would write stories, put acceptance criteria there, and then in those refinement sessions, people have already thought of it, and not everybody has to listen to one person speak, but the team actually come up with the refinements themselves, with the requirements themselves, play it back to the product owner. Product owner still plays the role in saying yay or nay, or guides, but it was more engaging. So that's just an example of how you can think a bit different about something, question the status quo, and do things a bit different. The agile mindset is open mindset, and it's a flexible mindset, not just a fixed mindset. And thinking only in terms of general principles prevents chess players from becoming experts or grandmasters, but thinking beyond them helps to evolve to a grandmaster level, not losing the principles, but thinking beyond them as well. So don't abandon the fundamental principles. Look for a move or a good idea beyond it. Pragmatic thinking is applying the right practice at the right time. So if you ever conflicted between whether you should go with the theory that you know or what you're thinking, or even maybe your gut feeling, my personal advice to you is go with what makes sense to you. Go with your gut feeling and just try. So change is your friend. Change is constant, as we've seen. we were just talking about it. The past year, so many things have changed. Past 2 years, and chess as well. A grandmaster knows that you have a plan. Without, you're pretty much screwed. But one move and everything on the board changes. Strategies are made obsolete, and you rapidly need to adapt. So embracing change is also vital in Agile. The Agile value of adapting to change over following a plan speaks to this. An example of this could be adapting how features work based on feedback you get from the market, from your customers. I've been in chess games that I've played against people who are stronger than me, and all my plans have failed, and I'm losing the game, and I just want to give up. And then just a small change happens. The opponent gets confident and makes one move, and then I can checkmate them, or I find a loophole somewhere. So yeah, definitely change your friend. You experiment and learn. Experimenting is the essence of Agile and chess. Try something, measure it, see how it works. Does it work? Yes, then do more of it. If it doesn't work, then try something else. To do is the best way to learn in complex domains like chess and software engineering. And that takes courage, especially if you've been brought up and taught that you should do things right the first time. But you do not become a grandmaster without looking your opponents in the eye and persevering through failure until you get to success. With retrospectives, could be getting a bit boring, less engagement. So what you could do, for instance, there is take a bit of a walk outside the office and just have a chat. How did the past sprint go? Just experiment a little bit with different things. In chess, often what I've done in games is I've just tried something that felt like it could work, but I didn't have a sound theory to kind of prove why it would work. And just for the sake of trying something new, it worked really well. I won some games like that. And I think often the good players, they know all the moves, all the sequences, and when they see something out of line, it kind of confuses them, throws them off. So that's a bit of a strategy that's worked for me a bit as well. So you're always getting better. Every game you play, whether you win or lose, you become a stronger player. And failure is your teacher if you learn from it. And we want to learn fast at a low cost. And when you fail fast, you have small experiments, you can also learn fast. So if you're afraid to fail, you're just going to play it safe. You're just going to not innovate, not try new moves, not play stronger players. And that's kind of sad because you also won't grow. So learning the theories, techniques and methods are, again, good, but it's practice that perfects the skills. So 600 AD, an Arabic game developed from an Indian game, and that turned into chess. The oldest chess opening dates back from 1497, and yet today there's new opening variations, new variations being discovered. So now We just passed the 20th anniversary of the Agile Manifesto. And since the goal of Agile is to improve the way that we work, it only makes sense that we evolve and make it better as well. And we won't do it by just reading the book and copy paste, doing the same thing, not experimenting. So if there's 3 takeaways that you take away from this, it's this. Agilists and grandmasters use their creativity to navigate the complexities in their domains. First, they use their knowledge that they have, and they come up with new ideas, and they learn through experimenting. So the missing link is not written somewhere in a book that you just still need to read. It's you. So I want to leave you with this. What's the next Agile practice that you're going to invent? Thanks for listening.